Hi and welcome to another episode of the Crochet Along With Me vlog. I invite you to pick up a project that you've been working on and join me for half an hour or more, in which I share with you what's been happening during the past month, what I finished, and what's coming this month. If you've been here before, you know what to do. Share with me in the comments what you're working on. Of course, I encourage you to share the name of the pattern and of the designer who made the pattern if you're working on one, because I'm curious and I'm sure that others would like to know as well. So as always, we will start with a comment from the previous episode. Here's a comment from Naughty by Nurture. Such an appropriate pattern for your current season of being such a busy bee. Thank you. You will see the finished shawl in this episode. I love mosaic and Tunisian, so I'm very excited for the combination. I just completed your Semper Vivum shawl for my 98-year-old grandmother, and I'm excited to give it to her this weekend. I hope that went well. You're such a wonderful designer, and I appreciate all of your hard work. Thank you so much. So if you'd like your comment to be featured in the next episode, make sure you let me know what you're up to or answer the future questions that I ask in this episode. If you watched last month's vlog, you might remember this project, except you cannot remember this project because what you saw in the previous episode, I frogged entirely. So this is a completely new piece that I made from the beginning, and this time I hope it will work out. So this is the third iteration of this project, and I am happy with how it's going now. I changed the way that the repeats are made, so this is a repeat now instead of this, so it's not a pointy bit in the middle, but it's a valley, and this way I am able to make the sleeves a different shape. So what I made previously made the sleeves so that they fell over the shoulder, and the yarn company that I'm collaborating with to create this design didn't like that, but I might make that into a future pattern. And this is how it will sit on the body, and there will be this shape. So when the piece grows, there will be a lot of drape. So this is an armhole that is big enough for my arms, so I can model this before I send it off to Berlin. And this is the overall shape it will have. Once it grows enough to where I can start the filet pattern, then I will add some more interesting stitches in the various rows. So I have it all charted out, but yeah, I still need to work it up. And I made quite a bit more than this the first two times, and I had to frog because I learned something. Also the edge here, I learned how to make it nice and smooth and straight. In the previous version, the edge was curling quite a bit and it had some bumps because I was decreasing to create this edge here, as you can see it. So we will see, maybe in a future pattern I will make the repeats like this, and you'll have a smooth edge because now I know how to do that and to start it like that. So I still have a bit to work on this, and I will probably finish it in a week or two. This time I know exactly what I'm doing, and I'm not questioning whether I should frog it again. And I increased the length of the stitch. So before it was double crochet stitch for each row, and now I'm using extended double crochets, for which I have a tutorial here on the channel. And the reason why I chose that was that when I get to the filet part, the filet will be nice and square. Also, so that the fabric doesn't grow too wide too fast, and that it can be long enough to be worn comfortably. So like this, it should be okay. So if you want to make one for yourself, you have to keep in mind that the armholes need to be big enough to fit over your arm here at the widest part, And also you need the distance between the two armholes to be at least as wide as your back. As you can see, this is wide enough for my back, and if it's a bit wider, it's not a problem. The armhole will be a bit lower on your arm, but if it's too small, this distance, then you won't be able to wear the vest. If you want to, you can also make a simple shawl out of this. Just skip the armholes and continue in pattern, and that way you will have a crescent shaped shawl with chevrons on the edges. And when I get to some more color changes, you will see how the chevrons impact the way the colors build up. And yeah, there's a reason why I chose to make chevrons here, to show off the gradient yarn, because normally, you know, I make a lot of lace patterns, but the colors go smoothly from the top of the work. So normally when I make a shawl pattern, the shaping is not as dramatic as it is here, but now we will have some very deep zigzags as we get to the edge. This is what I'm going to be working on for the next couple of weeks to finish it up and to write up the pattern and to start a test if you're interested. If not, I'll just do some tech editing, and the yarn shop Sparwolle that I've collaborated with before, they will have a kit for this vest. I know it's quite an early autumn, late spring and summer accessory, but you could also use some thicker yarn. And the nice thing about this kind of construction is that you can make the armholes anywhere you like. So if you use a thicker yarn, you can start the armholes early, because you will need a bigger hook as well, so you will have much looser gauge, and that way the project will go much faster. It also means that you will probably not get to the filet pattern, but it is what it is. I have two more whips to show you. One of them you've seen last time, and I made a bit of progress on it. The leafy mosaic cowl, and you can see I finished a pattern repeat and started the next one. I don't know how much more I'm going to make in this. Maybe I will finish the second pattern repeat and then I will add the honeycomb edging, because I like my cowls to not be super tall, especially if they're quite narrow. When they scrunch up, they should be at most this tall. And I will show you a few cowls in a few moments where this happens. So this is the sock yarn project with the 5mm hook, Tunisian crochet, and I will be working on that maybe a few hours here and there, and it should be finished at some point. And another work in progress that I started while on vacation, because I couldn't take this with me, also because I had to frog what I had when I left for vacation. I bought some cotton thread in Portugal. This is Portuguese made cotton thread, and it has a very beautiful color. I also got a green. I had this 1.75mm hook with me because I made the top edge of a dress that wasn't fitting me. I will insert a little close-up here with what I'm talking about. So I had a dress that wasn't fitting around the bust area, so I cut off one tier and I remade the straps and attached them to the remaining part of the dress using some size 10 cotton. And I didn't finish it before leaving for Portugal. I finished it up and sewed it up there, and so I had the hook with me. And when I entered a local shop, I found this cute cotton thread, so I started a project with it. And what do you know, it's a summer top with the triangle cups and a little bit of a compact lace here, and when it's finished it should lace up in the back. I still have 100 grams of this thread, and I used 100 grams for this, so it won't be very long. It will just be a summer top for wearing on vacation and similar places where it's warm enough for something like this. Here in Germany, I could probably never wear something like this, but the nice thing about this kind of project is that it works up so fast. So I made all of this on vacation except for the last row here. This I made at home, but everything else I was able to do on vacation while sitting on the beach or resting, just a little bit here and there. And the thread is so soft and buttery, it's confusing how much more comfortable it is to work with than the thread you find here in Germany for making. Normally, I think people make doilies out of this kind of thread, but this is so nice to the touch and to work up. So I also got some green in the same style of thread. It's called Estela from Espacio Estela, and it's a size 6, but I have no idea how many meters there are in this. I tried to look it up on the internet. There is no information about the length of one of these, so I don't know. Although I don't think I will make a pattern for this, so it doesn't matter anyway. So I will use it up, and then for the green one, I'll see. Maybe a different construction of triangle from the middle. It needs to be more of a pyramid shape than a triangle. So I will also experiment with that maybe next summer. Hopefully by then this one will be finished and I will be able to wear it on the next vacation. I wanted to take the Tunisian crochet dress with me on that vacation, but I'm happy I didn't because it's quite heavy. And while it's perfect for the summers here in Germany when it doesn't get so hot, in there it would have been too much. And I understand now why people would not want to use Tunisian crochet for garments in very hot places. Maybe using linen, that would work. Thinner thread than this 4-ply yarn that I'm using. Even though this is pretty thin for some people's standards, if you look at the fabric made with it in Tunisian crochet, it's twice as thick as knit fabric. So maybe for warmer climates, you might need to use even thinner yarn to make summer clothes. And Tunisian crochet cotton and cotton blends can be used in the cooler times. Here, of course, I cannot wear cotton blends in autumn and winter because it's too cold. Now, let's get to some finished projects. I've been pushing to finish this knit shawl. Well, it's a capelet. So this is the knit version of the fiery opal shawl, and I'm calling it the frosty opal shawl because it's the same pattern, but it's in this light blue to darker blue gradient, which looks like just a simple opal. And I don't know why I don't love it. I will put it on to show you. I made this into a capelet and not a shawl because I don't know why. I don't remember why. Maybe it was easier than to just start with a bunch of stitches in. Do you have magic circles in knitting? I don't know. So I started it as a capelet, and yeah, this is how it drapes. The fabric is quite heavy because this yarn is a microfiber and it's quite dense. So maybe that's why I don't love it. Maybe in a lighter yarn, in the same weight but not as dense, it would look nicer. I did a steam block on it, otherwise it would have scrunched up. So the steam opened up all the lace, and I don't know why. There's something about it. Maybe because it's so thin and I'm used to wearing the Tunisian crochet ones, which have a bit of weight to them. So the Tunisian crochet is a bit more compact and stiff than the knit fabric. It doesn't do this. But maybe if I were to make a Tunisian crochet piece out of this kind of microfiber, it would feel the same. I don't know. The pattern, I like the pattern. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just the finished piece. Maybe if I dress up nicely with a dress and a big skirt, it would look nicer. But yeah, I want knitters to have the opportunity to make some of these shawls, and while I know there are thousands of patterns for lace in knitting, if someone stumbles upon one of my designs and doesn't know how to do Tunisian crochet and doesn't want to learn for some reason, now they can do it in knitting. And yes, the featherly capelet that I showed you the last time is still not finished. I have it here. I still have yarn to use up, so it's not complete. It's quite heavy by now, but it's gonna take some more time. Knitting is more difficult on my hands, so that's why it takes me so long to make something. But still, this is 875 meters in 250 grams. As you can see, it's quite dense. It's very affordable if you want to buy it, but I don't recommend working with it because it's so slippery and it hurt my hands while working. So I would prefer to go for something natural that has a bit of stickiness to it, so it doesn't just fall off the needles while working. Or maybe use bamboo needles or hooks when working with this. I use the metal needles and do not recommend. So this is one finished object. It took me many hours to finish, and I bound it off with a picot edge, but it doesn't look so nice. You can't see the picots. I used the crochet hook to bind off, and I did the slip stitches and the picots, but in this yarn you can barely see them. Oh well. I have a nicer, more exciting finished project to show you. If you remember, last month I showed you this shawl, and it had the bees that were completed, and I only needed to add some extra rows in the yellow. I ran out of the yellow quite fast because it's already a wide piece. As you can see, it has the extra fabric here. I charted the pattern so that it has a lot more rows here, and you have a honeycomb pattern, but I ran out of yarn, so we only get a zigzag. I still think it looks nice like this, and it's quite a small shawl, but if you add more rows or use thicker yarn, you're gonna get a big shawl. So I'm gonna show you how it looks around the neck now. As you can see, it's quite nice. You can see the bees. There's a mistake here. I'm gonna cover it up with a bit of yarn. And yeah, this is how I'm going to be wearing this. If you want to wear it around your shoulders, you have to make it quite bigger because it's a bit too small, but I'm going to show you how it looks. I like that the ends curl up like this, like in my first few shawl designs with a regular crochet, where I really went for this spiral effect on the edges, and I love that. And this shape of the shawl also allows it to be tied behind the back when you make it bigger. Of course, this one is too small to reach behind my back, but if you, again, use thicker yarn or make more rolls, you will be able to tie it around your back and wear it like one of those Outlander shawls. I will focus on making this first and then writing up this pattern after I write up this pattern. As you can see, I have a lot of stuff to write up and not a lot of stuff actually happening, but yeah, I don't know when it will be written up. I still have to write this one up first, so in time. Now, if you saw my Instagram post from yesterday where I shared a sneak peek of this edge, you saw that I wasn't feeling so well, so I couldn't film. And I'm not sick or anything. You can probably hear it in my voice. I may have the normal side effects from flu vaccination. So I did it last week. And also last week I went to a concert on the same day. Not a good idea. Next time, don't get vaccinated and go to a concert on the same day. But yeah, I wore this capelet to a concert, and I was sitting there in the tiny crowd and thinking about what I'm doing because I've been so out of it, so tired, so exhausted lately, and I didn't know why. I think I probably know why, or at least I had the realization there, well, in the concert, that I've been putting so much pressure on me to do things that I think people would like to see from me, like patterns and new complicated things and clothing patterns especially. I've been pushing myself so hard to make clothing patterns and nobody cares. It's not nobody, but you know what I mean. There's a very, very small amount of people who are interested in the garment patterns that I've been making and writing up and putting so much work into, and just a couple of people outside of my testers are interested in making them. So I've been pushing so hard for so many months, for more than a year now, and why? I mean, it's not something that I had a desire in myself to make that. It was a challenge that I set because I said that there aren't many size inclusive, shape inclusive patterns for Tunisian crochet garments out there. There are quite a bunch of size inclusive patterns, but not so much shape inclusive. And I thought I could do better. You know me, I always try to do better, and that takes a lot of energy and work, and the results are not always there. I mean, the results of my work are there, but that's all. I've been putting so much pressure on me to do all this stuff, and in the end, who cares? People are buying my shawl patterns because they like them, or because they see them and they like them. I don't know. Garments, not so much. So I actually like designing shawls more than I like designing garments, even though I like making garments for myself. Writing up the patterns and getting them tested in all the sizes is not easy. So until I get a much bigger audience that is interested in garment patterns for me, I will take a break from making garment patterns because it's too much. And I end up with 2 months not being able to do anything because I'm so burned out. As you can see, for the past 2 months, yes, I've been making progress on projects, but I haven't published anything and I've been just worn out. For the next few months, next year, I don't know, I will try to relax and slow down again. I keep saying I slow down and then I don't slow down. I will work on publishing whatever I have so far and whatever I promised in terms of shawls, and one sweater that I really want to put out because I've been promising a pattern for that for 4 years now. as you can see, it's not so easy. I want to do that and then maybe make a few smaller projects, because you see I like to take on just big projects, and while I love making them, making patterns for them is really difficult. It takes a lot of time and energy, which I really don't have right now. Make some smaller things. I don't know how I just end up making these huge projects. I love them, but... So in terms of smaller things, what I want to do is make a few hats and at least 2 pairs of gloves, maybe 3. I have a glove. I think I started it in the winter of 2022. I made 1 glove, and then it was too much and I couldn't make the second one. But the challenge is to just make the second one, and then 2 pairs of Tunisian crochet gloves. I've had yarn set aside for those for many months now. That's the challenge for next month. Now, I'm not finished with finished objects yet. If you watched one of the previous episodes, you might remember this one. This is a cowl made sideways like this with some variegated yarn, and I made this feather and fan or old shawl stitch to show off the color changes in a wavy pattern. And I finally finished it because I found it stuck somewhere in the projects, and now I'm trying to find the seam. So I found it. You can't see the seam, right? It's here. So on the edge here. I worked up in the pattern so that it would be seamless. So I worked the same number of rows as here in the previous repeat. This one is actually not correct. So this is the repeat and I worked it here. So now you can't see the seam. I will put it on to show you how it looks. As you can see, it's quite thick and soft around the neck. Initially this was going to be an infinity cowl, so a big one that you wrap twice around your head. But since I started with such a wide piece, I realized that it was not going to be practical, so I just left it as a narrow cowl, and now it's a scrunched up tube around my neck, and it's very warm because it has many layers here. It's not uncomfortable if you're wondering, just right. So if I'm going to wear this, I'm going to wear this now in October, November, and in the spring, because it does have some holes. So this is how I like to wear my cowls. And even over the head with the ears covered. When it gets cold and I don't have a hat with me, or I have ear warmers but they're not enough, I like to use a long cowl like this and to cover my head with it as well. This is the bacon colored one. As I mentioned before, it looks like slices of bacon, and in a different colorway it would be much nicer. I can imagine it in a rainbow colorway. That would be awesome. And of course I cannot call it the bacon cowl, so it's gonna be called the sizzling cowl, because, you know, bacon sizzling. And I found another whip that I showed in a previous episode, and it's the same type of construction, and it's the same idea. I wanted to make an infinity cowl out of it, but again I started with way too many stitches. So if I were to make an infinity cowl, I would make it half as tall and then twice as long, or a bit more than twice as wide. So this one is made of a kind of mohair type of yarn, and for this one you can actually see the seam. Unfortunately, my tension was much looser at the beginning of the project than at the end, and also this is a much lacier fabric, so in order to get the top and bottom seamed correctly here, I had to stop on the same row as the one where I started. So in this stitch pattern we have 8 eyelets here, and when I made the seam I also needed to have 8 eyelets in this repeat. I only realized after I started seaming it, so I had to take it out the seam. I had to take out the seam and then take out a few rows so that the pattern is continuous. And when seaming something like this, you have to be careful to seam the correct stitch to the corresponding stitch on the other side. It's not too bad, and when worn, let me show you. Because this is a much fluffier yarn, and it's much softer, I worked with a much bigger hook. It has a bit more drape, but it's also wider because I made it wider than this one. Honestly, I prefer tubes that are this narrow, so when I need to, they can sit on the head without any problems. But this is just, I don't know, it's more of a fashion accessory than a practical piece because it's so fluffy and light. So this stitch pattern is a lot more complicated than this one. This one has 3 rows, 2 of which are identical, and this one has, I don't remember how many rows, at least 8, because we have those 8 eyelets. So I will try to write up the patterns for these. Maybe I will make a different sample for this one. This one is not recommended for yarns like this with short color changes because the lace will not show up. The lace here is the main attraction. I don't know how well you can see it on camera, but if you look through the fabric or at the fabric with some backlighting, you will see the chevron shapes. They are built with eyelets, but if you use color changing yarn, you will have some slight waves. You will also get these waves when you need to seam the project. For this, the waves are the whole point of the stitch pattern. If you want much steeper waves, so shorter wavelength and higher frequency, you can remove one of the simple stitch rows. So then the rows will be, the waves will be closer like this. That's it for finished projects. These ones were almost finished. I just abandoned them, nearly completed. So it took a couple of hours for each to finish them up. And speaking of cowls, this month there's the sweater weather blog hop organized by Raylene of Itching for Some Stitching, and I'm participating in it. You will be able to get one of my patterns for free on the 18th of October. This is the pattern that I chose to participate with. It's a cowl that I designed early in the year with honeycomb lace in Tunisian crochet. So I used this lace pattern to create this lace pattern for the edge here. They're not the same, they're not going to be the same, but it's the same principle. So if you want to get this pattern for free, you can check out the blog hop. Of course, there are many other patterns. Every day there's a new pattern from a different designer. So if you want to check that out, I will leave the link in the description. And every day you check the blog post and then you visit the participating designers blog post to get the pattern from them. I don't participate in a lot of these events, but also I like to give back to the crochet community. So once in a while I will participate in one of these blog hops. So I will go and check out today's offer and see what others are offering. There are sweater patterns, hats, cowls, and a lot of stuff for sweater weather. And yeah, if you get this, you can use the stitch pattern to make, for example, the spore print sweater, but with honeycomb in it. And yes, I've been planning on making one of those, but you know how it is. I have so many projects. If you participated in the Crochet Blanket Summit that happened this past month, then you'll also know how to take the pattern from this cowl and make a blanket for yourself, if that's something you're interested in. I will upload my presentation for the Crochet Blanket Summit here on YouTube so that you can watch it even if you didn't participate in the summit. I think it has a lot of important information, mostly for beginners, to be able to scale patterns for your own projects. That's it from me this month, and I hope to see you in the event on the 18th. Don't forget, I will send out an email update, so if you're subscribed to my emails, you will get notification when my day is on. I'm looking forward to seeing what you've been up to. Please leave in the comments what you've been working on, which project that I showed today was your favorite, and if you have suggestions, questions, ideas, I'm always happy to see them. Please write them in the comments, and if you need help with any of my patterns, always please reach out to me by email, andrea@yarnandy.com, because that's the easiest way that you will get help from me in a timely manner. Instagram is not friendly, so not a good place to write messages to me. And if you have questions or suggestions or anything that should not be in public, you can always write me an email. I thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Crochet Along with Me vlog series, and I hope to see you in the near future in another video. I hope you have a wonderful month of October and that you enjoy Halloween if that's something you celebrate. And I will see you either at the end of October or beginning of November. Bye. I almost forgot, someone asked to see my paintings. I only have one that's small so far. This is a landscape from here in Thüringen in Germany, based on a photo that I took while on a bike ride. This is actually close to the Thüringen Wald, or the Thuringian forest, up here in the hills. This is what you see if you come here and take a ride with a bike. It still needs to be finished with some varnish, but this is the type of painting that I'm going to be making to put around the house.